Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan. Today I have a review of an entire gaming series. The series we're looking at today are the Fable games, also known as the Peter Molyneux Tells Lies Simulator. Nah, I'm just joshing there, but we're looking at all three of the mainline Fable games today. We are not looking at the Kinect game because my Kinect no longer works. I'm sorry. But if you're like me, you're probably looking forward to see what Microsoft does with the reboot. Let's jump back in time and take a look at the original 3 games in the Fable trilogy. Hello friends and welcome to another 3 Minute Game Pass. I'm Nathan and today I'm going to tell you if this Game Pass game is worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Fable Anniversary. From a tiny acorn, a mighty oak may grow. And this time with remastered graphics and in HD. Is the first fantasy epic in the Peter Molyneux Lies About Everything trilogy worth revisiting? Let's find out. Fable Anniversary is an Xbox 360 game, so you know the drill. Gets some minor upgrades on Series S and X with auto HDR and upgraded resolution, but that's about it. And the game will last you about 10 to 13 hours. So what exactly is Fable Anniversary? Well, it's an Xbox 360 remaster of an original Xbox game, Fable, which is an action RPG with a big emphasis on do as you want and the world reacting to your character's life choices. You play as a titular quote-unquote hero, which is apparently a profession in this world. After your village is burned and your family murdered, you're whisked away to Hero Academy to be trained in the ways of being a badass. After doing a lot of tutorials, you're on your way to make your mark on the world for good or for evil. Fable's main gimmick is the promise of freedom. While you follow structured quests to the end of the game, in between those you are free to do all sorts of wacky stuff. Drink yourself drunk, eat until you're morbidly obese, get married multiple times, then give your spouse to a dark god for power, rob every store blind and drain the economy. There's lots of zany stuff you can do in Fable, and that's where its charm comes in. For the actual game itself, you engage in combat with either 3 types of abilities, magic, melee, or ranged, or you can use all 3. Killing enemies with one of these 3 types drops XP orbs specific to that particular ability, encouraging you to kind of min-max one area if you want, go all in on melee, go on magic, but you can spread it out as well. There's also a ton of weapons and magic to choose from. All in all, this is a semi-open world adventure with an emphasis on doing good or bad, but the game focuses on the fact mostly that it gives you that choice. So what do I like about Fable Anniversary? I actually really like the morality system. I know it's really basic, but it's fun considering the tone of the world. It's a Fable. Villagers also react to you if you're good or bad and so on, which I thought was really cute. There's a lot of dynamic world interaction based on how you've built your character up. The game also has a really fun sense of humor. It's really British, and it does not take itself even remotely seriously. And I love it. I find it to be absolutely hilarious in that regard. And the game is janky as all hell, and I love that. Crash the markets, lure everyone out of town, kill them, and rent their homes out to their orphans. Get the best sword and bow within the first half hour of the game. This game is incredibly janky. Its freedom means you can break it in a lot of ways, and I love games where you can do that, and this is a great one for that. When it comes to the bad, combat is about as deep as a puddle. It isn't particularly engaging. You either hit the enemy with your sword, you hit the enemy with a charged move for your sword, or you shoot them with your bow or with magic. That's pretty much the game. Not particularly complex. And also, for a game purporting to have a ton of freedom, once you start pulling at the threads, you'll find there isn't as much as you think. A lot of it is superficial, which to me is okay, but it doesn't live up to the promises that the game makes. And lastly, the main story plot is just obscenely dull. The story itself cannot compare with your own crafted personal stories of all the wacky shit you did just goofing off. And so, in comparison to that, this main plot just is so completely bland. So as you know, I rate games on a 3-point scale. Must play, maybe consider, don't bother. Fable Anniversary is definitely a maybe consider. Fable is a dated game, no doubt about it, even with the facelift. It also falls short of pretty much everything Peter Molyneux promised and is Jank City, USA. But despite all that, I can't help but love it. The game's goofy attitude, charmingly dorky character designs, and jank-ass morality system and interactions somehow all combine together into something that is far more than the sum of its parts. It isn't some grand RPG or an enduring masterpiece, but it is absolutely fun for a dozen hours, and you can also wear hideous outfits and fart on school children. What more do you want? That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Go out there and enjoy Fable Anniversary. Hello friends, and welcome to another 3 Minute Game Pass. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this Game Pass game is worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Fable 2. Fable has evolved and is near the industrial age. Is an inclusion of guns and real estate management the silver bullet to pierce Peter Molyneux's lies? Let's find out. Fable 2 is an Xbox 360 game, you know the drill, upgrade for Series S and X minorly with HDR and what have you, and the game runs about 10 to 13 hours long. So exactly is Fable 2? Well, it is a sequel to the original Fable, obviously, and is an action RPG with a light morality system and a focus on freedom, but in actuality, it's a real estate simulator about bleeding every NPC in the game dry and getting obscenely wealthy by being the world's worst landlord. I love it. Fable 2 is similar to its predecessor in a lot of ways. You are the hero of legend, this time raised up from poverty after the murder of your sister by the evil king. Your combat is split between ranged, melee, and magic, just like the previous game. And just like the previous game, all these abilities give you XP in their respective color, encouraging you to specialize into that specific type of combat. You'll be traveling through a semi-open world, dressing like an idiot and flirting with everyone as you fight along the way. Or maybe that was just me. The story of Fable 2 is expanded from the first one, where Teresa from the first game now guides you to find 3 key heroes representing each combat style to attempt to stop the king from doing something both mean and bad. Along the way, you'll find Albion has changed quite a bit as well. Things like clothing don't apply armor anymore, so style yourself as you wish. Ranged weapons attack faster, probably because a lot of them are guns, and magic now can be charged and uses either an AoE attack or a direct attack. You also have a dog, which can dig up things and find secrets around the world, as well as be your bestest boy. Also, a big change is that you no longer get money by killing people. You now have to either do jobs or invest in real estate. Buying houses or businesses gives you rent every 5 real-time minutes, including when the game is off, up to a cap, meaning you'll need to basically become a literal monopoly man in order to make some serious scratch. Seriously, this game is secretly just about buying property. Aside from that, this game is very similar to its predecessor with some marginal improvements along the way. So what do I like about Fable 2? Well, I really enjoyed becoming a rich property buying dingus. The metagame within the game of trying to see how insanely wealthy you can get is incredibly addicting, and I'm not the only one because everyone talks about the real estate management in this game. The new story is also much better, and the side quests are way better than the first game. I found that overall this was the most improved. I was actually invested in the story, and the side quests kept it very interesting. I also still love this series' aesthetic and sense of humor, and Fable 2 keeps that alive and kicking. It's still very funny, very cute, has a very distinct style to it. When it comes to the bad, I do feel like they streamlined an already shallow combat system and leaves it to be pretty boring and fairly mindless. Similarly, the game feels like it lost a lot of the janky bits of freedom the first game provided, making it feel less free and more railroaded. It does mean it's more polished, which is a positive, but a lot of that charm kind of left with that. And lastly, the movement feels a lot less precise in this game. It's way more floaty than the original game. I don't like it. It feels off. As you know, right, game, it's on a 3-point scale, must play, maybe consider, don't bother. I'm torn on this one. I am going to give it a must play. My script I wrote maybe consider, and as I'm saying this, I'm changing my mind because I do feel like Fable 2 is a great game, and it's definitely the best game in the series so far. It takes many steps forward and some steps back, and while it still is absolutely charming and has a wonderful sense of humor, it also feels like the game did lose a bit of the uniqueness that the first game had. However, I do genuinely feel like this is the solid sequel to an original idea and the perfect refinement of the Fable franchise from what we have so far. So overall, I'd still say you give it a shot and check it out, and especially the part where you buy property and get rich, because that part of the game is perfect. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Go out there and enjoy the hell out of Fable 2. Hello friends, and welcome to another 3-minute Game Pass. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tear up this Game Pass games with your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Fable 3. Fable is donezo, with you being some nobody whose destiny you forge. Now you're a prince or princess, and your douchebag brother the king needs to get the boot. Is Peter Molyneux's Revolution game a bastion of freedom, or is it built on a kingdom of lies? Let's find out. Fable 3 is an Xbox 360 game, which means you're going to get minor updates on Series S and X for resolution and auto HDR. The game is about 10 to 13 hours long, and that's about it. So what exactly is Fable 3? Well, Fable 3 is an action RPG with a light morality system and a focus on recruiting people or groups of people to help overthrow a king. You may note I didn't say freedom this time around in terms of how the game is played. We will get to that. Fable 3 dramatically mixes up a good amount of the franchise's core elements. Gone is a lot of the freedom and feeling of exploration as you forge your own destiny. Instead, your path is laid out for you. Your king brother is a total dick nobody likes, and you, as the royal sibling, are going to rally the people to overthrow the king to become the ruler yourself, and then realize being in charge actually kind of sucks. On your road to the crown, you need to recruit followers, and that prestige is now the new form of XP. XP. Gone is the use specific combat type, get that type of XP. Now you get a blanket XP for all combat, as well as doing things like shaking a random stranger's hands in public, or dancing with them randomly, or doing wacky side quests for them, and so on. XP is spent on the Road to Rule pathway rather than a normal XP menu thing, where abilities are in treasure chests you buy and upgrades are gated by story progression. So much for making my character a bonkers broken early on. Additionally, this game, Peter Molyneux decided menus were so 2008, so instead of having a menu for gear, etc., you now have to warp to an in-world area called Sanctuary, where you can go to different rooms to equip weapons and armor, save the game, and so on. A new mechanic is weapons actually do upgrade and morph based on how you use them, though figuring out how specifically to make that happen eluded me. Once you finally boot your dumb brother off the throne, the game changes dramatically to a decision-making game where you have to decide whether you'll keep your promises to your fellow revolutionaries or do whatever you want. We'll get to this. Basically, Fable 3 takes a skeleton of Fable, removes pretty much everything that made the franchise unique, and makes a totally different game out of it. So what do I like about Fable 3? Well, you can still buy everything everyone owns and rent it out to them at obscene prices, and they even made it easier since you can now buy property directly from the map screen. Peter knows what I want in that regard. This game's side quests are more elaborate than previously, with some genuinely funny bits like having to act out a ghost's terrible play, or dressing up like a chicken to lure more chickens back to their pen. And lastly, I still love the series' aesthetic and sense of humor, even though I feel like it lost a lot of it in this particular entry. When it comes to the bad, oh my goodness, the sense of freedom feels completely stripped away, with both quests and side quests railroading you to where you need to go next in every situation. This is especially exacerbated with the stripped down skill tree. Combat is stupidly, comedically unbalanced. If you just hold the magic button down the entire game, you will win. It is honestly unbelievable to me. This was bad before, but now it's so easy, it's downright tedious. And lastly, the final half of the game, where you rule, is so terribly designed it feels like a joke. The moral choice doesn't even work here, since the Lovecraftian monster is about to destroy everything, and if you keep your promises to people, it makes it harder to defeat it. Isn't saving the world slightly more important than opening an orphanage this very second? Though apparently you can just also buy your way to the best ending, which is equally stupid. As you know, right, games on a 3-point scale, must play, maybe consider, don't bother. Yeah, don't bother. Fable 3 is a massive misstep. It killed the franchise, and I can definitely see why. It's as if Lionhead Studios made all these games without figuring out what people liked about the game series. I genuinely hope that whatever the Forza guys are making in the upcoming Fable reboot, none of it shares any DNA with this awful game. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and go out there and avoid Fable 3.